Hello everyone, in this video I'll be showing you the most OP honor mode party build in Baldur's Gate 3. This will be including patch A classes, but also some base game classes so you can make the most out of your run. This will be for roughly levels 5 and 6, but I'll be showing you the full leveling guide. First, starting off with our tank character with Karlach. The two best choices for a tank would be the Barbarian, which can go into the rage taking half physical damage, and the Fighter. Now, the Fighter got a substantial buff in patch 8, getting the Eldritch Knight's ability to give Booming Blade, which can also be triggered at level 7 to give you an extra attack. Since we're likely not going to be level 7 in Act 1, I think the best choice is the Barbarian, because there's a few really good ways to utilize this, because throwing with the Berserker Barbarian can give us an extra ability to bonus action throw, and it can also knock targets prone with no check, which is one of the most valuable parts of this. I think the Barbarian's a bit better of a tank, also in the fact that you can go with lower armor class, and it's going to draw the enemy's attacks to your character, which is going to take less damage than your others. Now, there's a couple ways to really min-max the Barbarian. If you want, you can go to Auntie Ethel and buy out all of her strength potions. There's a trick you can use with a Hexblade Warlock to get infinite money, so you can literally go and buy a bunch of strength potions at the start of the game. That is going to be the most powerful way to do this with Tavern Brawler. However, we can also go without that if you wanted to, and then you could use a stat spread of something like this, and then use your first ability score improvement or use your first feat to take the Tavern Brawler and bump your constitution up to 16. However, if we wanted to use a strength potion, that's how we can truly maximize the health on this one, and we can take something like 16 dexterity. I would still recommend having either 15 or 17 constitution, because the Tavern Brawler will boost that up, and with the strength potion setting our strength up to 20, that it just gives us a nice way to be able to utilize some other items here. Also, having some wisdom saves is also a good thing, and also having a bit of intelligence too. The big thing with having higher wisdom is hold person and command are going to be those. So we'll work with this stat spread here, because this with the cat's grace here can put our armor class up pretty high. And once we get to level 3 of the Barbarian, this is when we can choose our subclass. Now, I previously did a video with the Giant Barbarian. It is nice. It gets the ability to throw any type of weapon that you want in the early game, but still the returning pike is going to be one of the better choices anyway, so you can just stick with that. The Giant will allow you to throw anything though, because it'll put the throw-in property on the weapon. But the Berserker Barbarian is great because of the Enraged Frenzied Strike and the Enraged Throw, which can knock the target prone. And this is a bonus action, which is pretty crazy, so very powerful. And you also get the Frenzy attack, or the Frenzy Rage here. I think this just works a little bit better. Wild Heart Barbarian is another consideration if you go with the Bear Heart, because you become resistant to all damage types except Psychic, which is very, very defensive as well. But I do think that the Berserker ends up being a bit better bang for your buck in terms of a class. And then at level 4, we can take our Tavern Brawler feat, and this allows us to take our Constitution up to 18, just for better survivability, and also it gets added to our armor class. Level 5, the big power spike, extra attack and fast movement, increasing your movement speed when we're not wearing any heavy armor. And level 6 gives us the mindless rage. When frenzied, you can't be charmed or frightened, and calm emotions no longer ends your rage. This is pretty nice, but if you want to do something a little silly, you could also just add a level of the Warlock, and then take Booming Blade, so you got another weapon attack there. But I think that it's best to just not multi-class this at all and just keep it with the Barbarian for now. And as far as gear goes for the Barbarian, this is going to be something that we're focused on using clothing options for our armor class, because you can see there we get our Constitution modifier, our Dexterity modifier as well. And if we use the Bracers of Defense, this will add a +2 to our armor class as long as you're not wearing armor, which we're not. We're wearing clothing, and we're not using a shield, which we're not with the returning pike. So we're going to be mostly focusing on throwing, and then you have the Enraged Throw as well there. I also like to have the Haste Helm. This can be gotten early in the game, and it gives you momentum, which increases movement speed by 1.5 meters for every stack, so that's an extra 4.5 meters movement speed. The Graceful Cloth will also increase your dexterity by 2, so this can get our dexterity up pretty decently here in the early game. And then also on top of all of that, we get the, I guess I have the Hag's Hair there, so I should have used the, I should have taken my dexterity up to 17 there. Depending on where you put the Hag's Hair, if you take the Hag's Hair. I didn't want to incorporate that too much into this build. I also recommend taking the Disintegrating Nightwalkers for your boots, so you can't slip on ice, you can't get entangled and webbed, and you get Misty Step, so you got some extra mobility there. As for amulets, I like the Periapt of Wound Closure, which will allow you to regain the maximum amount of health points, and a nice bonus if you throw a healing potion on the ground, you'll always take that max healing stack, so that's really useful as well. I also have the Caustic Band on here, which is a very rare item in honor mode, and the Ring of Flinging, adding a 1d4 bonus to throw damage. Now you can also swap this out for somebody else, like if you want to give that to someone and take the Crusher's Ring there for a more movement speed, that's another good choice. Or you can even go Ring of Protection for better armor class. So those are some other options there for rings. And since we use strength potions, we may as well use the Titan string bow there, as that's going to be really good with that 21 strength. It gives us a +5 to our damage. And then with the returning pike, we deal quite a bit of damage. So pretty good overall as far as a tank character goes. If you went with the fighter, wear heavy armor or the adamantine scale mail armor. And for the Eldritch Knight, it's pretty powerful that way. So next we'll be going into our healer, our cleric with Shadowheart. So with having Shadowheart as our cleric here, there's a few useful subclasses. My personal favorite is the Tempest domain. This gives us the reaction with the Wrath of the Storm. We can do pushbacks on our lightning damage, and we get access to a lot of really great spells. I think that the best one for honor mode, however, is the light domain, because this gives the warding flare, and then at level 6 we get improved warding flare to protect our teammates. This can impose a disadvantage on an attacker, possibly making their attack miss us, which is really good and super valuable in honor mode. It also gives us fireball and other fire spells like burning hands, fairy fire. But the life domain is another choice you can go for. I just think the light domain does the best. And for our cantrips, bursting sinew, toll the dead, and sacred flame. If you see goblins, this is a dex save, so use toll the dead or the bursting sinew. And then if anything's vulnerable to radiant, use that. As for our ability scores, we're going with 16 dexterity, 14 constitution, and 16 wisdom. However, you can put up your strength a little bit higher if you want to use strength. But since we're going to wear medium armor, we can actually take advantage of having a higher dexterity score. So into the next level here, we get ourselves the Radiance of the Dawn, dispelling magical darkness. We don't really want to do this near our darkness, but this is a 2d10 plus 1 radiant damage. And we also get turn undead. And for prepared spells, I would recommend having the healing word here for the bonus action heal if an ally goes down. Command, extremely useful. Early on in the game, you can use this on Commander Zolk to get the Everburn blade. Not the best blade in the game, but some people like to use it. We can also take Creator Destroy Water, which can set up our casters by doubling lightning and cold damage. And also Bless is really good, but we get a staff that's going to give us Mistress Blessing, which is a way better version of Bless. So we can just skip that. And then take Guiding Bolt and a Sanctuary as well. The Lay Cleric mainly focus on applying Radiating Orbs, and we can do that through a variety of different means. Now we also get ourselves the Late Domain, Scorching Ray, and Flaming Spear spells, which are really good to have. And we also get Spiritual Weapon, which gives us a useful bonus action. The Mace can daze targets, landing our commands and hold person much more frequently, because this is a wisdom-based save, and daze gives disadvantage on wisdom saves. So that's a nice thing to have there. You can also take off Sanctuary and put on hold person here if you like, because hold person is really good to have. Into level 4, we get a choice of another cantrip. We'll take Guidance. And for the spell, we'll make sure that we have, you should always have Guidance too. You can also just go with, take Bursting Sinew here and take Guidance a little bit earlier. And for our next feat, again, we can go back and take our Sanctuary. But another nice thing is for our feat, we can go with an increase to our wisdom for better spell casting. There's also some other good choices like Spell Sniper, if you want to focus more on spells, but I think the best choice here is just a wisdom increase or the alert feat for the +5 to initiative. Having your cleric go first can be nice, but sometimes it's better to have them go later to recover health if you need to. Because at level 5 here, we get access to our level 3 spells, and we can prepare more spells. So we can get ever powerful Spirit Guardians, radiant damage, which will apply our radiating orbs, and also Mass Healing Word here, which does a 1d4 of healing. So that's pretty good because we can apply all of our benefits. There's items that can apply Blade Ward and Bless on heal, and you can heal the entire team with a bonus action level 3 spell slot. Pretty nice, especially early on in the game. At level 6, we get another level 3 spell slot and another Channel Divinity, but the big thing here is improved Warding Flare. So whenever someone attacks your teammate, you can give the disadvantage of the attack roll, which is huge. If your spellcaster's getting attacked, you can protect them with this, as we have a decent armor class ourselves. And we can also take Glyph of Warding. It's very situational where it's best, but it can be nice to be able to pick up or hit enemies with that or put them to sleep. And Revivify, also pretty useful for reviving a target. Now, what we want for gear, there's actually a lot of gear that's very specific to a cleric, which works out perfectly here. So like a Wapira's Crown, when healing another, you gain 1 to 6 health points. So nice d6 whenever you heal. And we got the Luminous Armor, one of the best items in the game, actually. And this is a uncommon armor in the early game, but when the wearer deals radiant damage, they create a radiant shockwave. So whenever what this means is if we use like Spirit Guardians or our radiant spell, Sacred Flame, Guiding Bolt, or even the Word of Radiance or Radiance of the Dawn, we can apply Radiating Orbs. Those give a -1 to attack rolls, which fits perfectly because we want to protect our teammates. And that's exactly what the Light Cleric does. On top of that, we got the Hellrider's Pride. Whenever you heal a creature, it gets resistance to bludgeoning, piercing, and slashing damage. Once we get to Act 2, we can take the Luminous Gloves, which kind of stack with the Luminous Armor. But for now, we got that, and then we can also get the Reviving Hands later on, which does this, plus gives Death Ward on revives. For the Boots of Aid and Comfort, when the wearer heals a target, it receives additional 3 health. This is nice as a flat 3 temporary health. It can receive temporary health from multiple sources, but that's still good. We also got the Amulet of Restoration. However, we can swap this out for something else if you wanted to. You could give yourself the perioptic wound closure and then give this heal to somebody else that maybe isn't going to use their bonus action as much. But we can also go with the Amulet of Misty Step because getting a free teleport is also very useful. This does just give us a free extra heal without burning through a level 3 spell slot, so you can leave that on. But you can also go with something like the Spectator's Eye to give ourselves some extra damage, or even the Pearl Power Amulet here, which will give us a restoration of our spell slots, which is pretty nice to have. I also like the Whispering Promise. You can take this from Volo. When you heal a creature, it gets a 1d4 bonus to attack rolls and saving throws. So basically bless for 2 turns. And then if you keep healing people, you'll keep applying bless. And our Cleric wants to get away from danger, so Crusher's Ring for the extra movement speed is also nice. Now we get the Staff of Arcane Blessing. So it gives us bless, but bless grants an additional 1d4 to saving throws and weapon attack rolls, and an additional 2d4 to spell attack rolls. So you can apply this special version of bless on your spellcasters and they won't miss, which is really nice. So you can apply this on your 3 spellcasters, or you can also put it on your tank here. In addition, we also got the Safeguard Shield, which gives a +1 to saving throws, or you can also use the Glowing Shield, which will give you 8 temporary health if you go below 50% health. And I also have the Bow of Awareness for +1 to initiative, so that we don't go last. This is nice to go. It depends on the initiative order, but it's also a good idea to be able to set up and apply Radiating Orbs. So next we'll be getting into a caster, and you can go with the wizard, but I found that the best synergy is actually to use the new Shadow Magic Sorcerer, and there's a few reasons for it. The Blade Singing Wizard and the Abjuration Wizard are both quite nice. However, I do think that we get more power from using the Shadow Magic Sorcerer. Also, it kind of fits thematically because Gale can get a Shadow Magic slot if you play as Origin Gale, so that kind of works. But for our subclass, the Storm Sorcerer and the Draconic are really good as well. This gives you built-in mage armor, which can be nice. But with the Shadow Magic Sorcerer, we get the Strength of the Grave. We can come back up whenever we get down. We get Dark Vision. We also get the spells, and I would recommend taking both Shield and the Magic Missile spell. And for the cantrips that we're able to select, we can use the Morning Frost. We don't have to take Ray of Frost. We can get it from there. So we could go with, I wouldn't recommend really Booming Blade, but Bone Chill, Mage Hand, which can throw healing potions or water bottles to apply wet. And then we can also go with, and we want to take the Acid Splash because for some reason when you get the Omen, when you apply Omens from your Hound at level 6, it's oftentimes acid. So that's a nice one to have. And then we can also take like Firebolt or Poison Spray there, but Bone Chill stops the target from receiving healing, Mage Hand to throw healing potions, and water bottles, and then those 2 for the elemental damage types. So for our ability scores, I'd recommend going 16, or you can take 17, take the Hags here on this character. Having good dexterity and as well as constitution is going to be important, so we want to have maybe 14 dexterity, 16 constitution. Depends whether you want a higher armor class or if you want a higher amount of health. So it's really up to you on this one. Being higher in armor class is always a good idea, but we'll go with a stat spread like this. Into level 2, we get ourselves some more choice in spells. Chromatic Orb is a really good one because with the Hound of Omen, we can apply whatever elemental damage type we need with a single level 1 spell, which is super nice to regain our sorcery points. Or we can take Thunderwave. The pushback's also really nice to have. But for our meta magics, Distance Spell to increase the spell range by 50% is huge because sometimes you just need to be able to hit somebody. And Twin Spell, you can actually Twin Haste, which is super useful. Although we don't always want to have 2 people lose haste, so that's why we got items that give us advantage on Constitution saving throws. Into level 3 here, we get ourselves another choice of spells. Scorching Ray being a good one. Hold Person is always a good choice, and Misty Step. But if you're looking for the best damage, I would say probably Scorching Ray from Darkness, because at level 3, we get our Eyes of the Darkness. Now, what's super useful about this? So for 2 sorcery points, we can create darkness that we can see within. Darkness is super useful, especially in honor mode for stealth, but you can also use a Hexblade Warlock, and they will benefit from this too. So we have our defensive bubble of darkness for both our sorcerer here and for our Warlock, and then we can cast from within it, doing things like Scorching Ray. So this is very defensive and useful. For the meta magic, I'd recommend taking Quicken Spell for that bonus action spell. So it's really good. 5 sorcery points you can put up darkness and then spell cast from within it. So it's actually pretty nice. Now for our next level spell, I'd recommend taking Poison Spray or Shocking Grasp here. And we again have Ray of Frost from the Morning Frost. And for this, I would recommend Misty Step's probably the best choice for that get out of jail free card, or Hold Person, because this is always a good choice to have. And for our feat, I would recommend bumping up our charisma to 18, or taking the alert feat because this is a good character to have go first, because if they can take out more targets, that is a really good thing. So those are two great options. At level 5, we get access to level 3 spells, with Fireball and Lightning Bolt being too high priority. Haste is also really nice, and don't sleep on Counterspell. Being able to stop a spell from being cast is also very useful. The other thing is we can also take a dip of Wizard and then learn from spells and use the Intelligence Circle if we want to take like Fireball and Lightning Bolt too. But I would say if we were looking for a damage choice, it's probably best to go Lightning Bolt, because you can have your Cleric set up water and that'll deal double damage, which is really good. It also works great on invisible targets because water will reveal them and make them take that double damage. But at level 6, we get the Hound of Ill Omen. This gives us a bonus action Hound that has 42 health. It splinters off into additional Hounds if it gets attacked without radiant damage in melee. And it also can bind targets with its Umbral Tangle and bite targets to be able to apply an Omen, which you can spellcast and get back your sorcery points. Pretty useful. Again, here, Haste, Fireball, and Counterspell are our top 3 choices. I'm just going to go Fireball to keep it simple in terms of blasting damage from within our darkness. So yeah, that is what we got going on for our Shadow Magic Sorcerer. But for our gear for Gale, the Shadow Magic Sorcerer, I like the Spider Silk armor because we have light armor proficiency. But the big thing is it gives you a bonus to stealth checks, so we can hide out in darkness a little bit. But we also get an advantage on Constitution saving throw checks, which is important because our concentration on spells is that. You can also go with the Protecty Sparks Wall if you want to use Sparkling Gear or Lightning Charge Gear early on in the game, or Padded Light Armor as well. This gives us that nice 13 armor class, so that could take our AC up a little bit higher. You can also go with that. It's your choice. Now, another good thing to go with is like the Gloves of the Growling Underdog. So I guess I'm going to say this is a good item for Karlach there, but for our gloves, we can go with the Gloves of Dexterity, set our Dexterity to 18. And then you can even just jump the Dexterity, but that'll give us a nice 18 armor class, which is pretty solid. If you got the Wondrous Gloves, that is the nice item to have in the early game, or Gloves of Missile Snaring to reduce the amount of damage that you take. The Wondrous Gloves giving you an additional 1 armor class, which is pretty nice. But Dexterity Gloves, Daredevil Gloves for close range spell casting can work pretty well, but we're casting from darkness, so you can again dump your stats and put some points into the Dexterity stat, or take the points of the Dexterity stat to put into your saves. And we also got the Boots of Genial Striding, so we don't get interrupted by difficult terrain. But you can also go with the Boots of Stormy Clamor. If you apply a status, you can apply Reverberation. So that's pretty nice. And yeah, we don't have a whole lot of options, but that's what we'll be rolling with. Now, we got the Ring of Elemental Infusion. This does not work on Booming Blade, but I guess this is more so if you want to be a Blade Singing Wizard, we can go with instead. The Ring of Absolute Force is not a bad choice if you have the Brand of the Absolute, which I recommend taking. It also gives you a free Thunder Wave, and you'll deal more damage with Thunder spells. You could take Crusher's Ring from Shadowheart there. I would recommend actually putting the Ring of Protection, since his armor class is going to be a little bit lower than others. It's nice to bring that up. You can see here we have 20, 19, 19, and 21 armor class. Or if you get the Fetish of Calduran Smooth Hinge, you get a free invisibility spell, which could work actually pretty well when we're hiding out in darkness. So that's another good consideration that you can roll with. I also recommend having the Psychic Spark here, which will give you an additional magic missile, which is super useful for breaking concentrations. And we can also go with the Shade Spell Circlet here, which gives you a +1 to spell save DC when we're obscured in shadow. So that's good. It gives you a +1 to your stats, which is like a +2 to your charisma stat. It's pretty good. We could also go with the Circlet of Blasting for a free Scorching Ray, and even something like the I guess we could go with the Headband of Intelligence, and then, as I mentioned, take a level of the Wizard, and then you'd cast this with a 16, which is not bad, all things considered, but you can also learn different spells from the Wizard too, so it adds a little bit extra versatility to this overall. I also have the Hunting Shortbow because it gives you Hunter's Marks, not terrible to have. And finally, I'll be showing you the Hexblade Warlock Astarion here, which is actually very powerful in Honor Mode. So the Warlock, Hexblade actually makes us pretty tanky because we got medium armor proficiency, so we can use the Adamantine Splint Mail, which is actually very, very strong. Now, what's also great about this is we can go all in our charisma for our weapon attack rolls and our spell casting. So with the Hexblade, we got our Bind Hex weapon, which gives us a 20% chance of applying Hexblade, or 10% chance of applying Hexblade's Curse. This will give us a bonus to damage equal to our proficiency, so it's going to be a +3 damage, and give us a 5% increased critical hit chance. Now we also get weapon proficiencies, shields, and all that good stuff. For our cantrips, Eldritch Blast and Booming Blade work really well. Booming Blade especially because we can do a bunch of cool effects with that. And for our spells, I would recommend grabbing Shield. This will be a lifesaver at some points. And also Hex is good because you can hit the target multiple times, getting additional 1d6 of damage every single time. That's really good. Now for our ability score spread, I would say 16 dexterity, 10 wisdom, 10 intelligence, 14 constitution, and 16 dexterity work well. However, we can also take the points out of our dexterity and put them in the constitution because we only get a +2 from our dexterity to this armor. So that can work well too. Now, the big thing about the Hexblade is we get the Devil's Sight, which gives the ability to see in magical darkness up to 24 meters. Now, this is extremely useful because we can have our Shadow Magic Sorcerer set up darkness, and we can also use it too, and then we can lay down Hunger of Hadar, which is super useful for crowd control, and it works very synergetically along darkness. So this is great because we can control the battlefield that way. Now, we also got Agonizing Blast and Repelling Blast, which will add our Charisma modifier with Agonizing Blast, and Repelling Blast will add a pushback to both of our Eldritch Blast. I'd recommend going with the Repelling Blast first, and we'll take Agonizing Blast at level 5. And then for this next spell, Hellish Rebuke can be sometimes nice to finish off a target. This is a use of a reaction here to deal a little extra damage. Armor of Agathis is another good choice, though. You could go with that as well if you'd prefer. But we're going to be going with that because we melee attack mostly. So at level 3, we get access to some very powerful spells like Shadowblade. This gets a big power spike in Act 2 after we finish the Mind Flayer colony, and we get this. You get the Shadowblade Resonance Stone, which doubles the damage of this. Now, Darkness is another good spell because we can also use it too, but our Shadow Sorcerer can only see in darkness if they cast it. So I'd recommend for us to take Hold Person or also Misty Step, although it doesn't really, I don't like using up our short amount of spell slots to use Misty Step. So Hold Person is a little bit better. And to be able to get the second attack at level 5, we have to take Pack of the Blade here. If you're going to multi-classes with something else, you can go with Pack of the Chain. And then because the honor mode, the Pack of the Blade doesn't actually stack, but it still gives us an extra attack. So we're going to roll with that. And it puts our Hex weapon into one skill, combines them. So level 4, we get ourselves another cantrip. Toll the Dead's not bad. And again, Mage Hand is always something that's not bad to have. And then for our next level spell, I would recommend Misty Image or Mirror Image or Misty Step, either of these two. And for our feat, and increase our charisma up to 18 or the alert feat again. Now, +5 to initiative means we're likely going first every single round in combat. At level 5, we get our Deep Impact, we get the extra attack, and we get access to the next level of spells, which gives us the Hunger of Hadar, which does 2d6 cold and acid damage at the start and end of their turn, and also blinds the targets. We can blind them, set up our darkness, they're also blinded there, and we can have a huge area of effect control. And we can also attack into this, so if the enemies are in there, they move slower, and then also they just take, it just completely burns through them. We also get to take another Eldritch Invocation here. Slow is not a bad spell, but I think Agonizing Blast just works best for our ranged option. And yeah, it's a pretty big power spike for us. Now we can go with another, we can add in a multi-class if you really wanted to, but the War Cleric will give us an extra bonus action attack. But I think that the best thing here is to go level 6 and then get ourselves the Accursed Spectre. This doesn't have the highest chance of success, but sometimes getting that extra ghost can be nice to help out with your team. And for our next level spell, counterspells, counterspells are actually really good to have. And Fear is another good choice, but we'll go with counterspell. Even though we only have 2 spell slots, it's not bad to be able to save our team using that. So as for gear, we got a lot of great options. I would recommend going with the Adamantine Scale Mail. We're the only one that wears medium armor aside from Shadowheart, but hers is focused on protecting the team. Ours is focused on protecting us. So that gives us a nice 21 armor class. And then we could get it to 22 if we took the Ring of Protection back from Gale. But I also like to have the Wondrous Gloves here. This will increase your armor class by 1. So that's good too. Because some of the other gloves that are useful are like the Gloves of Baneful Striking. So whenever we do an attack, we give an X 1d4 penalty to its next saving throw. We could also go with the Gloves of Power, which will give Bane, which gives a minus 1d4 penalty to attack rolls and saving throws. A little bit better version of the Gloves of Baneful Striking. And the Winter's Crutch is more so focused on the spell casting of Gale, so that could be that's actually a glove that he could take, and we could take the Gloves of Dexterity instead if we wanted to, but it's only going to impact our initiative. This only gets a +1 from, or +2 from our Dexterity. So Wondrous Gloves are good for the armor class. Now we also got Boots of Striding, so whenever we cast a spell that requires concentration, we get increased movement speed, and we can't be knocked prone or moved against our will, which is huge because getting knocked prone is how a lot of concentrations end. So this will keep our Hunger of Hadar up. Now I also like to have the Ring of Arcane Synergy, so when you deal with damage with a cantrip, you gain Arcane Synergy, which adds a Charisma modifier to the damage. So that's a +4 to our damage. And what's nice about this too is Booming Blade will trigger this, so perfect. We also got the Strange Conduit Rings. When we do an attack with concentration held, we do an initial 1d4 of psychic damage, which is also nice to have. And then we also have the Knife of the Undermounted King here, which will increase our critical hit chance. And we also get the Shadowblade ability, so we get advantage on attack rolls against Laylee are heavily obscure targets, which is nice because when we have darkness up, we then get advantage on our attack rolls. We're very likely to land our attacks. And we're also taking the adamantine shield here, so if an attack misses you, it gets sent reeling for 2 turns, which gives a -2 to their attack rolls, similar to radiating orbs. So this is really good. Attackers can't hit criticals on you. And we got the Knife of the Undermountain King. So this combo I think is the absolute best for us. And then since we don't have a heavy bonus action aside from Hex, which burns through our 2 spell slots really quickly, so be mindful of it. You can reapply it to everybody afterwards, but I like to have the Fire Stoker and then the hand crossbow in the offhand. You can swap these around too if you wanted to, because you can do additional 1d4 piercing and burning targets, and we only use our offhand attack. And I guess I should also mention the Broodmother's Revenge. So whenever you get healed, we get an additional 1d6 of poison damage on our attacks. And Shadowheart's got a few different ways to heal us and apply bonuses. So it's a nice thing to have there. So that works great. You could also go with the Sorcerer Greatsword if you wanted to forego a shield, but I think it's best to have a bit of defensiveness. So there it is. That is the best honor mode party build. And I'll just throw out the spectator here to show off a fight. So yeah, whenever we're getting into combat, especially if we get initiative first, what we want to be doing is setting up. So Shadowheart has I guess the spell casting, our shadow magic sorcerer Gale here has the Eyes of the Dark, so we can use this to create our darkness zone. So this is going to be our safety net here, so we can go ahead here and then have them, because when they cast that, they get the Eyes of the Dark, which allows you to see in darkness for 10 turns, which is the same length that our casting. So then you're going to move Astarion as well into there, because that'll give him his enhanced Shadowblade, and also you can cast Eldritch Blast, which will keep them away. But then he can also go with Hunger of Hadar. But I would recommend setting up your units in a good position. So we have Shadowheart here, and she can go with our special version of Bless from this. We can also go with a Radiant Damage. If we want to apply Radiating Orbs to the target, we can also do that. Depends on what you want to hold your concentration on. If you want to have a Spirit Guardian's concentration, that's also a pretty good option, because this will also give us the Radiating Orbs. And you can line it up with the darkness there to be able to protect the team as well. And for Karlach here, she's going to go into her Frenzied Rage, and then once we're in this, we're going to get a nice bonus to be able to do the Enraged throws. So what we'll be doing is throwing the Returning Pike here, which actually is going to do a ton of damage and have a very high hit rate because of the since we have that Tavern Brawler bonus. So then we got our weapon back in our hand here, and we'll see the momentum there. For some reason we can't do our next extra attack, so that's fine. And what Astarion will do is he'll set up his Hunger of Hadar here, and you can line it up so that everyone gets to activate. So we have our darkness safety, there's the Hunger of Hadar, and then Shadowheart has her Spirit Guardians, which can be easily applied. And then we also have our offhand crossbow attack. You can also give the Acid Ring to him to add a flat out +2 damage to it as well, which is pretty nice. So that's what we got there for our squad. We're pretty safe here, and if you really wanted to go crazy, you could use the Mass Healing Word. It's only a 1d4 bonus, but it'll give us everyone Blade Ward, which is pretty good for defense. And then the Hunger of Hadar is going to deal damage. It's going to fly and take Radiating Orbs, and yeah, it does have some pretty strong attacks. Yeah, concentration broken with the Paralyze. That was not ideal, but yeah, move back into Hunger of Hadar, and we got our opportunity attack off. And it's blinded, so we can deal extra damage to it. It's got that big eye there, but it can't see. It'll go in there for whatever reason, but then what we can do is we can also go with a Booming Blade here and attack, which will apply that Booming Blade condition. And then for some reason we can't get our extra attacks, and oh, I forgot to put, yeah, if we don't have the Bind Hex Web, we don't get the extra attack there. But Astarion can also do a bite or his offhand attack, depending on what you want to do. So we can go with that to get the happy condition, and that also heal us, which will give us the dipped in poisons. Then we can go back into our darkness here, where we're safe. So Karlach can also just do melee attacks if she wanted to. I would recommend doing your throwing attacks though, but since it's blinded, we have advantage on our attack rolls, so that can be pretty nice as well. So we can go ahead with just a regular attack there, boom, and then we can follow up with another attack. Although throwing is likely going to be the best option for damage, we just can't see the amount of damage that we'll likely do here, so that gives a 99% hit chance. Boom, 21 +2 damage. And then we can go with an Enraged throw, so this allows us to throw this once more, again with the advantage there. Very high hit chance, 26 and 2. Oh, that did a big exploding attack. That was not ideal. To be fair, you're not supposed to fight this here because it's a special version of the Spectator, so it's not like the other Spectator fight that you get in the Underdark. It's a little bit more powerful. So it's all gone to Gale here. It's got 14 health left, so we need to hit these shots. Now we have 3 level 3 spell slots here, so we want to use something that's going to be high chance of hitting. This has 14 dexterity, so even using a fireball or a lightning bolt's not a bad choice. So we can go with that. We do have 4 sorcery points left, and we can, I guess, go with this here. So yeah, we'll try a fireball out there, and that was it. So perfect. So that was a close call, but that's how to take down and show off, or that's, I guess, a full party build for Act 1 of Baldur's Gate 3. If you have any questions, feel free to leave them in the comments. Hit the subscribe button below if you haven't already, and I'll see you all in the next video.